Okay, greetings, family. Welcome to Magnus Crystal's Pyramids. We got a special show tonight featuring RaAkhu. I am on the road, therefore you can't see me with the camera because that don't work together. He'll be joining us shortly. We're going to do the invocation. I am in me. I am in Brother RaAkhu. I am within you, the listening audience. Thank you for being born. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for surviving conception and reincarnation back into the physical dimension. We gather today on each and every show to sharpen our spirit faculties so that we may glow and fulfill our destiny each and every way with the information provided to illuminate us night and day. So we say to all our past life incarnations, thank you for being born. Thank you for being alive. Thank you also to our past lives. I'm getting my flow, y'all. Bear with me. I am forgiving everybody from my past lives. And I ask everybody from my past lives to please forgive me. And yes, most of all, I am forgiving myself because I am greater than my memories. And I am everything. And everything is I am. So we turn our attention to the here and now and say, yes, I am forgiving all future possibilities, all future timelines from here forward. And I ask everybody in my unlimited timelines to please forgive me. And most of all, I forgive myself because we are our own worst critics. We are gods at play, goddesses at play in the muddy dream reality that seems to be real. At the same time, it's empty space. Ultimately, frequencies, vibrations, illusions of physical creation is all an illusion. So we have to be gentle with ourselves, gentle with others. Yesterday we had a great show, myself, Laji. Special acknowledgement again to Queen Yana, health food store out of Alabama. She gave us some great insights. I want to thank also all the crazy, incredible testimonies I'm getting about the super salt. I want to thank Ascended Masters. I want to thank the I Am Within You. Family, we're going to have the super salt available in the near future. But the few people who've had to sample the testimonial feedback is nothing short but miraculous. To the point, I just took me a pinch. You don't need a lot. Also, place in the comments what city, what state, what country you are listening in from, because we have superior intelligence listening to our shows off planet, outside this dimension, because we are like children playing with nuclear matches. We need supervision beyond the religions, beyond the social conditioning. We are surface savages living on prison planet chicken farm Earth. That's what's happening right now. And we need supervision. The moon is an observation artificial ancient spaceship with advanced technology to monitor all circumstances on the planet and interface with other superior life intelligence to let them know when the children need monitoring. When the children, speaking of us humans on the planet, who've been hacked by nefarious, low frequency extraterrestrials that, because of our low frequency, we think of them as gods. We say, oh, yes, those are gods. However, they chopped human lifespan from 1,000 years down to 50 to 100 if you're lucky, because they're afraid. The supernatural occurrences that's happening right now on the planet is something to behold. Since that alignment, whether you want to call it just a picture in the sky of cute little planets in your minute monkey mind, there is a presence, initiation, and activation that is happening on this planetary surface, activating your God DNA, that Neanderthal scientists call junk DNA because they can't comprehend it. Like a cell phone in 100 AD, that they would say, oh, that's some kind of magic, oh that's garbage, oh, that's junk DNA. If we could, we'll give you a DNA lobotomy. You know, we are on a super restricted planet using antique technology that you think you're the greatest thing with your late model cell phones and cars, but we're really been suppressed by the powers that be. Don't believe me? Look into Rockefeller's agenda. He made idiots, basically idiots, out of public and private school institutions. He made idiots out of the medical school system. He made idiots out of transportation to be dependent on the lubricant for planet Earth instead of electricity, as Tesla spoke of. There's no need for coal, oil, or gas. So we thank and invite Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Black Madonna. We thank and invite latest Christ born in the Congo, Simeon Toko. We thank and invite Sanat Kumara, Seraphis Bey, Master Himalaya, Great Divine Director. We thank and invite Melchizedek, Enoch the Ethiopian who ascended into the heavens and became Metatron. We thank and invite the latest Christ, born in the Congo, Simeon Toko, who invoked an army of muscle-bound, bulletproof black angels to flip over the Belgians' tanks and heavy artillery and chase them out of the Congo because they were occupational terrorists. We thank and invite Harriet Tubman. We thank and invite Nat Turner, John Brown, Frederick Douglass, Shroom Master, Dr. George Washington Carver, Shroom Master, Dr. Sabi, Shroom Master, Kalindi Aye. We thank and invite the master presence that lives in your hearts, individually and globally and celestially. We thank and invite ascended masters from ancient lands of Atlantis, Lemuria, and the hollow earth. We thank and invite them to guide the show tonight. And we say, Ashe, Mahalo, Donada, Wado, Amen, Amen. So let it be spoken, so let it be so. Let it be done. Looking for our brother. I don't particularly see him at the moment. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me good. And I'll be able to check momentarily the status of this transmission. Presently, I'm driving. I just saw RaAkhu text me but I can't answer that text. I'm doing like between 60 and 70, so I'm going to have to momentarily pull over uh, so that I can handle this digital technology. But wherever you're listening from, put it in the chat. We appreciate you. Like, subscribe, share. Earlier, it was rain coming from Brooklyn all the way down into Virginia area, the DC area. Now it's pretty much finished here in the Virginia DC area, and I'm heading back to the Brooklyn area. And if I'm not mistaken, it is raining uh, in the Northeast right now, uh, from Jersey all the way up to Connecticut, perhaps Massachusetts. So as soon as I get a chance to pull over, I'm going to check the status as far as what's happening with our brother RaAkhu. He come up with some interesting information pertaining to the invisible gears of creation. You notice how mathematically precise the movement of the planets, the stars, the nebulas is, as if it's on a clockwork. So he's going to be presenting some fierce information, mind-boggling, that I have found. I've never heard anybody speak of it. Maybe it's just my exposure, but the things that he's sharing is profound. Let me see. All right, coming up to a place that I can pull over momentarily and see what's happening. Hope everybody can hear me, but we're going to find out shortly. Those who participated yesterday in the exercise, put in the comments how your experience was. I got a lot of texts. People had breakthroughs, amazing insights, and they shared. But we have to, in the spirit of Ubuntu, collectively share with each other the breakdown, because we all are like big children in mature bodies, or little kids in mature bodies. Some of us emotionally are still like 6 or 7, for better or worse. Can't tell by the physicality, but conversation and actions, you can tell when somebody is matured correctly and when they need some assistance, or their star seed is still sleeping in the moist, dark experience of Earth's physicality. So put in the chat, put in the comments how yesterday's experience was for you if you had joined us on the show. Let me just get a chance. When I get a chance, I'm just going to pull over and connect with everybody. And if you can hear me, put it in the comments. And it give me a few minutes, because I got both my hands on the steering wheel, and I'll be with you shortly. Also, I made an incredible batch of Acacia beads. I put the super salt in the Acacia beads, and it seemed like when I was relaxing after I had poured the beads into the resin, the energy was so powerful, so strong, coming from the Acacia super activated that I could feel the energy coming through the walls from the other room that had the acacia beads in it. And I was like, now this is the next level. So I have one necklace on, and I'm still adapting to this. It makes me think of that almost a little bit of the show, the movie called Venom, where there's a presence that's living inside the man. But this is a presence that's living in the in the acacia. It is the acacia spirit that was liberated, activated, so it can literally express itself as almost like a powerful idling of energy around my neck. So it's almost like, even though it's beads, it feels energetically like how could I describe, like a life ring of energy thick around my neck. And it's taken some getting used to, but these will be available in the near future. You will have access to these. You will be able to experience the harnessing from unlocking the supernatural energy of acacia. I don't know where RaAkhu went, but we're going to find out shortly. And I'm getting ready to travel through a tunnel, family, so I don't know if I have internet, but if it does drop, please stand by, because I will return. I will return because I'm going underneath a tunnel right now. Some tunnels have internet and then some do not, but we're going to find out right now as I peel into this tunnel, and then I'm going to pull over on the side so that we can get our brother on, and I'm going to let him speak because I got my hands on the wheel tonight, and focused on steering, safely clearing, navigating, traveling. And that's what I have to share. I don't know where he is, but we'll find out shortly. Hang on there. Stay with us. Again, put in the comments what city, what state, what country, even if you're listening off planet. If you want to make a presence, let us know. I'm going to pull over shortly so we can get our brother on. But in the meantime and in between time, just hang on with me. He's in the chat, Tanya. Tell him he's supposed to push the guest link. Family, tell RaAkhu to, if Tanya, if you can hear me, tell him he has to press the guest link, StreamYard link. Family, could you put in the comments for RaAkhu to press the StreamYard guest link that I had sent him, so that he can join through the StreamYard guest link, and then we can proceed on with the show. Yeah. So if you can hear me, RaAkhu, you using the YouTube video link instead of the StreamYard link. You got to press the StreamYard link, because the YouTube link is for the rest of the family. So go through the sequence of the StreamYard link. I believe I sent it to you in your text. That's the blue icon and not the YouTube icon. But I'm going to pull over shortly. And tell them, hang on. I'm going to pull over at the next exit so that I can straighten out this situation. Because I'm up in between 18 wheelers and high speed cruisers, and I'm looking for an exit. So I'll be with you shortly, my brother. Family, hang in there. This is going to be a fantastic show, a fantastic presentation, because watching and listening to RaAkhu on shows and off shows, the brother's a genius, plain and simple. We got to give acknowledgement to the brilliant genius Jedis that are amongst us. We got to break out of acting as if it's going to cost us our bank account to acknowledge the luminosity of divinity that shines through individually. Many times we act like broken. We really believe the broken Negro hype when instead of saying thank you, ladies, when someone opens the door, you have a sneer attitude of entitlement. We don't give each other enough gratitude, thankfulness, saying thank you, bro. Thank you. Thank you, sister. Thank you, auntie. Thank you, grandma. Thank you, grandpa. Thank you, life. We have to say more often, I appreciate you. Thank you. I support you in the spirit of Ubuntu. Every other society, every other culture outside of, if you get a chance, see what it's like in business, networking with people in other cultures, network with them as far as business. I'm not saying it's perfect, pristine, but it's functional because we need each other for business to thrive. We can't be the Lone Ranger, the miseducation of the Clint Eastwood-itis that many folks think that if there's another luminous individual in our midst, we got to be threatened because we're so fragile, we're so broken, we're so um, afraid, full of fear that someone else might outshine us. We got to get over that. You're only going to be here for a hot minute. 50 years, nobody here on the line will be remembered, with maybe one exception or two. We're going to be forgotten like dreams, your forgotten dreams from last summer. In 50 years, listen, conscious folks, you will be forgotten. That's part of the ebb and the flow of life. You're going to be forgotten in 50 years. Your family will have forgotten you unless you've taken print out pictures and actual videos. You will be forgotten unless you leave marks on the halls of time using uh, digital technology, using paper technology. We'll be forgotten. Having pictures of our friends and family and loved ones while they're young, healthy, and full of hope. A lot of us get drained from hope. I'm still looking to pull over. A lot of us get drained of hope that no longer shines in our eyes because of collective disappointments and not forgiving the perpetrators, the traitors, the disappointments. We become a burdened Rolodex of broken dreams and memories instead of saying, I forgive, I forget, and the best is about to come yet. So you are a miracle. We are miracles. We're going to bring it. Oh, there's RaAkhu. I see him. All right. Let me just get myself positioned. Hold on, y'all. Okay, RaAkhu, can you hear me? He's on stage, family.
Yeah, I can hear you, Lord.
Yeah, man. What you didn't push the link, man? You was on YouTube.
Nah, I was on both places at once. I have several browsers here, champ.
Yeah, what?
I said I was on StreamYard. I was in StreamYard. I was here, but then I left and I re-hit the link. But I was sitting here waiting. I was watching this.
Man, I'm doing 60 miles an hour, 95, man, heading back to New York.
You said you're gonna pull over. What was you gonna pull over for?
I ain't pulling over at all now. You on the line, brother. Family, give a warm welcome to our genius, expert astrologer, RaAkhu is in the house, man. Go ahead, take the mic, brother. Take the mic.
Peace, Lord. I see you are. You should stay engaged on the road, man. Don't allow this to distract you in your driving here.
I'm gonna listen to you, man.
Yeah, I hear you. Just hear what I just said though. Keep your eyes on the road. Pay attention.
Oh hell yeah.
And don't allow this conversation to distract you.
And family, I want you to remember RaAkhu. I say repetitiously, I am invisible to all law enforcement. Yes, I am. I
I'm
am
invisible to all
in
law enforcement.
harmony with all other drivers. Yes, I am. I am safe along with divine safety of all other drivers because we got to do acoustical science. But RaAkhu, do your thing, brother. What in the world is Yoruba calendar?
Okay. I can't start there, but that's where I'm gonna end up at. Okay. First, let me start. Let me say peace to the gods, everybody here in attendance. I appreciate you coming out to hear what I need to present. Um, I'm a chronographer. I study calendars and um, especially the old ones, the ancient ones, because they're encoded with a bunch of deities, and I'm fascinated with the mythology that is attached to the deities because I believe that at one point in our history, the whole world was following an astrological or astrotheological order. This is my philosophy, okay, and my hobby and my passion. So understand what I'm doing here, okay? So, a few years back, quite a few years back, one of my students called me about eclipses, and I was studying eclipses at the time. And I was finding ways to convert the eclipse calendar into a template like the Chinese zodiac, because they don't use a lot of planets, right? They use elements and sections and fractals. So their astrology is based on fractals. That fractal uh, principle using whole numbers or numbers that concur with different numerological philosophy and concepts is what I believe the priests that wrote these or that devised these calendars, um, I believe that's the premise they were coming from, that they were encoding their way of life and their beliefs and their cosmologies. Anywhere you go on the earth, I believe, I theorize that this is the case. So every year or every other year or so, I take on a new calendar to study it from its mathematical premise, and I match its template to planetary orbits, and I compare the deities that they assigned fractally to these time periods, the rituals, as much as I can, learn about it, because some of this stuff you got to be initiated in that program. Ifa is one of those. You really need to be initiated to have to get a true concept from the perspective of a practitioner. Okay, so I advise you to approach it with that type of esteem and respect, because this is a spiritual system followed by millions of people all over the planet Earth. you know. But It's not just the Yoruba calendar that I'm studying. It is the mathematical framework upon which the calendar is based. Because there's a lot of talk about returning to a 13-month calendar. And people want to dispute the foundation upon which that calendar should be presented and explained. That's the thing with me, you know, because a lot of people don't know what they're saying. So calendars are the roots of governments. They are the roots of systems. They are the roots of agricultural. They are the roots of the culture, period. Okay. The calendar is the focus around which the entire society schedules itself. Okay. And as far back as we can go, when we go further back than the before the Punic Wars, okay, you go back before then, every society on the planet Earth had an astrotheological, they want to call it solar worship or astrolatry, but they all had a timekeeping system that was encoded with their deities. And these deities are said to give the day its nature. Okay? So when you think in the mind of an ancient man or try to identify with the mind frame, which was holistic, they were seeing a bigger picture without the linear training that Western society puts on you. You dig? They were looking at a much bigger picture, and the way they were devising time was based on celestial cycles. So every year, I embark upon a personal study of one ancient calendar and another. And for the last few years, I've been severely mistaken as to what the oldest calendar was. Okay? Because it was the oldest calendar to my knowledge. I was studying the Mayan calendar. I'm still studying it and its deities and how those deities concur in their archetypes with the astrological symbolism, chronologically or not. Okay? I'm still looking at these and making comparisons because all of them used the motion of the sun and the moon for their calendars. All right. And the research that I'm doing for this, you know, if we had 24 hours on this platform, y'all, I wouldn't be able to give it all to you. So I'm going to let you know, I'm going to take this opportunity to promote my Patreon page because I'll be posting my findings there because this is going to be an ongoing study. All right. I'm not an expert in E5. So I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want anybody jumping up there feeling like I'm being offensive with their culture either. But I am using and examining this calendar. All right. And I am of the mind that regardless of what traditionalists or the unconventional free thinkers say, I'm making this observation for my own self, really. Okay. Because I was always fascinated with Chinese astrology and how they weren't using planets. They were just using time frames. And being a modern astrologer and using software and ephemerises, I've come to understand that the rate of motion for planets is not constant. It is slow on one end and fast on another, and it only averages out on the two sides, okay? And this is every single orbit in the natural sky, all right? But these templates don't do that. These templates work on constants, on mathematical constants that are derived from planetary cycles. For example, the Yoruba calendar is called, it's spelled, because I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's Kojoda is the name of the calendar. Kojoda, I think. Okay. And That's how it's pronounced. All right. And this calendar, it has 13 months of 28 days. Okay. And each month has 7 weeks of 4 days. 7 weeks of 4 days. All right. Now, some people have added, or some lineages add another day to make it concur with the solar calendar. And I don't know if that is something new or something old. Okay. I'm going with what I first discovered when I first started looking at calendars, and I set that one aside. Okay. And what really caught my eye about it is that they say the calendar is 10,067 years old, which means this goes back to 8,042 BC. Okay. And if you understand, if you go back and study that period of time, anthropologically and archaeologically and archaeoastronomically, then you begin to understand that whole culture in West Africa and was blossoming, okay, during that time. These people weren't trapped in the ice, living underground, trying to keep warm. They were living in a very temperate area because Africa wasn't submerged by ice, you see, to that extent, right? If it was anywhere, all right? So the calendar seems to reflect a plausible time for the civilization to start. And that blew my mind, because I'm of the mind, like you got conspiracy theorists, you know, I'm of the mind that Atlantis was the whole globe, but that shit was real, okay? That it was a blossoming global culture, all right? And it's not just because of what I've seen in the media. It is because I've studied the calendars of India. I've studied the calendars of Egypt. I've studied calendar structure in South America, okay? I've studied the Hopi calendar. So I'm looking at all these calendars, and I'm found all of them are solely lunar. Luni-solar, really, okay? Why moon before sun? Why luni before solar? Because the moon was for all the religious festivals, and from month to month, each moon in each section of the sky was given the quality of the season, what they were doing at that time of year. If it's time for sowing, time for harvest, time for this and that, okay? Because the knowing of the cycles was very important to survival. It still is to this day. Farmers still use it, okay? And 8,000 BC, this is when food crops were being seriously cultivated and cross-genetically bred as far back as we could find origins for it, because there may be some information or some evidence out there we have yet to see, or that I have yet to know of. They goes back even further than that. You know, they're finding fossilized food. There's more than 35,000 years old in South America, okay? So I look at it on a global, supercontinental mind frame. I'm not really with, you know, all this bickering about we from America, we from Africa, we from Asia, we from here, we from there. You know, I entertain the mind that, you know, the North Pole and the South Pole are revolving around the earth, and so is the equator with it, and so is the black man wherever the equator goes. So you don't know how many times the earth is flipped over. What is dry land now used to be underwater, and what is underwater now used to be dry land. This is proven by the ruins they found out offshore off of Louisiana, offshore in the Gulf of Mexico. For those who don't know, that's the real reason why Trump is claiming it as the Gulf of America, because they found them ruins right offshore, a few miles offshore in Louisiana, and they don't want the Mexicans to get it. You dig? And so he staked his claim. All right. Now, when you consider the fact that there was a global civilization, then there was a global culture. And for those who want to say, no, this isn't true, okay? There was a global culture. We used bows and arrows and canoes and spears. On every square inch of habitable earth that we can find, of now inhabitable earth that is now fossilized, we can find man using these tools. We find a totem pole on all the continents from pole to pole. So all that who first shit, the furthest back we can go is the inventor of the bow and arrow. Okay? So I'm not even going to trip off of continentalism, because these continents are not divided today as they were in the past. If Atlantis was real, then India, Africa, and South America represent the three prongs of the trident that they use to logo it mythologically. Okay? So I'm of the mind that this is true. So when I saw that the Yoruba calendar was 10,067 years old, I said, damn, that concurs with the age of Cancer. And I always felt this was true because I heard about, I had friends from Nigeria who used to recite their orishas, and they were explaining to me the nature of their spirituality. And I'm always intrigued and curious about any spiritual system whatsoever and its dynamics. And nowadays, it's strictly to find astrotheological comparison. So I'm going to give you an example real quick, okay? I was looking at the story of Obatala, okay? And I'm of the mind, from my astrological perspective, that Saturn or Capricorn or the 10th cusp or the mid-heaven point are excellent points of reference that concur with his mythology, okay? And now I asked ChatGPT what it thought based on what sources it could find on the internet. And it wanted to associate Obatala with Leo because the sun is the king, right? And Obatala is the king. And I get that idea. But I was looking at his mythology. You know, the secrets is hidden in the mythology, whatever mystical meaning they have. I am looking at it from my own education in astrology. I have never been initiated into the ethos, so I don't know exactly how they look at it, but I know I can read his mythology. And they say that he's the one who formed mankind out of clay. Okay, so that means he's the bestower of forms. All right, just like Osiris was the bestower of forms. Okay, or Ser was bestower of forms. Right? I mean, he's like the god of smithing and what have you, right? And regeneration and all of this that comes with that, with the worship of him, all of it was going on in that culture, right? So you see, and Hephaestus is another comparison in the Greek mythology for those who don't have a grip on the African mythology, right? And I'm new to it too. But there's a feature of that episode that even made me more think about Saturn, because Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, and these two archetypes in astrology represent what could be grotesque, as well as the crystallization, the thing from a thing condensing from an area of lesser concentration to an area of greater concentration, like air crystallizes into gas crystallizes into liquid, and liquid furtherly condenses into solid, right? This crystallization process brings it to a type, brings it into form. And the same thing happens mentally on the blackboard of your mind, right? This is called ideation. And in the I'll in the Metunetic, ideation belongs to Saturn too, right? So I looked at all of these mythologies, these symbolism, and Obatala, he made a mistake. He got drunk. Okay. And this is what fascinated me about the mythology. He got drunk and he made a deformed person. And when he realized what he had done, he vowed to never drink again. Okay. Now, I read somewhere on the internet, I think it was at Reddit, that somebody said that is like Saturn in Pisces. that a person exercises discipline over their addictions or over the things that take them out of their natural state or out of their fully functional state. And I agreed with that. But I saw a whole nother nuance from that mythology that I can use in my astrology. Okay. And that is that planets have declination. There's an equator out in space that is projected from the equinoxes. All right. That equal line, that zero, we call that 0 degrees declination. Everything above that is the northern hemisphere of the heavens. Everything below that is the southern hemisphere of the heavens. And it functions like the equator of the sky. All right. So Saturn and Neptune never go out of declination. They never go out of bounds, ever. And not in our history. Where all the other planets go out of bounds. And the sun sets the bounds. He moves it from spring, 23 degrees north in the summer, and then comes back in the autumn to the 0 degree line and goes 23.25 degrees south of the equator. All right. These are the tropical points. All right. I mean, pardon me, the solstical points, right? The Cancer solstice, the solstice of Capricorn, right? And the these solstice points give vertical dimension to the otherwise horizontal or circular zodiac. Well, Saturn and Neptune never go out of bounds. And I looked for years, I've been looking for astrological significance with regards to those two planets because they don't behave like the rest of the planets in our solar system. Well, that mythology fits the archetype of Saturn and Neptune, okay? Because Neptune deals with the wine and getting drunk and getting out of your natural mind state, okay? And allowing the illusory, sensual passion to take you out of your realization of reality. And Saturn is reality. And as Obatala is the father of the gods, then I suppose that he is also the father of reality, or the archetype for reality, the harsh reality, the true reality, the just reality of it all, right? And this is the same for Saturn. So these similarities led me down a path. So how is this attached to the global cultural aspect of it? Well, I was envisioning the map in my mind, so you can look at Google Earth if you can't picture the Earth, right? and I noticed that the closest continent to South America is Africa. It's 9,000 miles apart, 9,000 miles, okay? And there's a current that carries you. If everybody reads about the westward current or research the westward current, you'll know about that, right? And there's a current there. And so it's very likely that there was contact. So I started looking for points of evidence to support my theory, as well as points of evidence to debunk it, because the mainstream has got a lot. They don't want you to believe that there was any transoceanic travel before Christopher Columbus, like we never built boats, like we weren't the master navigators of this planet. Long before the Europeans came out the cave. I got that from a book called The New Atlantis, written by a European. Okay, so don't get mad at me for saying it. He calling it out. European powers and the church and the state has sought in every means to dumb their populations down, especially to any knowledge of world culture and advancement of man before 6,000 years ago. They don't want to give credit where credit is due. You know, their forefathers swore to besmirch our names and remove our history. So this is what they've done. And the history of the world before 6,000 years ago, and especially before Columbus, is too black for the mainstream, okay? Until they find a way to milk white it out, all right? I hope I'm not being offensive, but this is the actual truth, right? So I'm going to explore fringe theories. I'm looking for real evidence to support what I'm trying to do with this. So the first evidence is that all of the religious scriptures I've studied, I found ways to astrotheologically connect it. And the two brother themes is the spring and summer sun arc, which is 180 degrees of solar transit, and the evil brother or the brother, the jealous brother in every tradition is the other one. And with the exception for the Popo, that's something different. That's different astrotheology there, which I'm gonna touch on here today. But because I know that in Nigeria and West Africa, they take twins very serious. And because I know that Nigeria has the highest percentage of twins, at least it did the last time I checked, right? And I know that they grow on their hands. Pinkies, I associated that people with the sign of Gemini for years, for those things, okay? And their spiritual system and their spirituality carries that brotherhood theme all the way back to 8,000, 7,000 BC, and perhaps before that. And we find the same theme of brotherhood all over North and South America, prehistory. All right? I believe this is the sign of Gemini. All right? I believe it happened that this mythology developed in the age of Gemini, which began shortly, okay, which began about 700, maybe 1,000 years after the Ice Age. The age of Gemini started, all right? So the fact that West Africa had the Gemini motif in their mythology, and I hate using the word mythology, because there's got to be absolute scientific and historic grounds for all that shit in my mind. You see, I don't think it is, it's just mythological. I think that there's an actual factual occurrence that was merged with other ideology in order to preserve, in order to keep it all in one place. If you're thinking holistically, you're going to put your history, your science, your spirituality, your cosmology, your mathematics, your agriculture, everything all up in this vase. And we're going to call it the calendar. Okay? Let me get my thoughts together for a second, all right? Because I don't want to digress too much on y'all. So I went on a search on the internet looking for calendars more ancient than the Mayan calendar, which started at 3,114 BC, right? And that is one of the most perfect calendars when it comes to Naroses and Seroses and SARS and Exelemos eclipse cycles. Every one of the calendars from India to Africa to the Americas, all of them being lunisolar, naturally encapsulate the eclipse cycles. And these calendars were built for perfect lengths of time containing these cycles. All right? So realizing that, I wanted to compare the calendar from Yoruba to the Mayan calendar, to the Chinese calendar, and all that. And because this calendar has 13 months, I said, oh my God, if those Orpheus dudes or those Serpentarians find this out, they're going to try to hijack this shit, because they need something to mathematically base their shit in that can create a cohesive geometrical pattern. And then they don't have to say that there's not really 12 signs, because it just depends on how many you want to divide your circle up into. Egyptians used 36, okay? If you want to argue, at one time there were 10 signs of the zodiac, and it worked perfectly for the people then. But as you investigate it more, and like any other science, it grows with experience, all right? So you get different versions of it. All right. And so they modeled their months after the moon and got it as close to a solar year as possible. But let me dispel the idea that there are 28 days in a lunar month. That is not true, y'all. There's not a single orbit or circle involving the moon that takes 28 days. That is 28 24-hour periods. It is not true. You can argue with me all you want, all right? there are 9 different cycles or 9 different measures or motions of the moon that are measured. Okay. And near one of them is 28 days, not even 28 point anything. Okay. It's 27.3 and they round up to 28. It's 27.3 is 360 degrees of the moon's motion. But from full moon to full moon is really like 388 to 389 degrees of lunar travel because there's an overlap of the zodiac before it catches up to the sun. You see, 27.3 days later, really 29.55. That's called a synodic. All right? Synodic is when two bodies are in the same position from your position on Earth. They appear to be in the same position. They repeat that position and come full cycle to that position. All right? And that's called the synodic cycle. Okay? Now, synodic, however you want to pronounce it, potato, right? So, but the other one is called a lunation, and it is a sidereal orbit of the moon, just 360 degrees of the moon, not new moon to new moon. So therefore, there may have, at some point in the history of this planet, a time when 28 days, it was closer to 28 days, where any one of those counts may have been closer to 28 days. I'm just saying that to date, there are exactly none that are 28 days. 28 days is an average. Because if that 28-day a month thing were true, then every 28 days you would see a full moon. And you do not. You see one every 29 days, 15 hours, and some change. You see? So these variables are what we deal with in Western modern astrology and perhaps in Vedic astrology. Okay, of course, in Vedic astrology. But from what I've seen in Mayan astrology, even though they track the planets, their calendars don't move in the fashion that Mars moves. Their calendars don't move in the fashion that Venus even moves. When they say that the 260-day cycle is a Venus cycle, that's how long Venus remains a morning star or an evening star. And that number is 3 to 4 days off because it's invariable. So these conflicts that came about from studying the geometry and the rate of motion of planets, the astronomy of astrology, is what drove me to say, well, how did they resolve these in the ancient days? Because they wasn't using the stuff we're using today. Okay, they're using their eyeballs, and they're using tools that are not as electronically refined. So the distance of degrees really didn't make that much of a difference to the ancient astrologer. If they were overlapping or very close to one another, that's all fine and good. And it really works like that because for the whole time that they come within a specific distance of each other, they're interacting, okay? Giving indication and description to the time, not cause to it, all right? Not cause from it. Just giving information regarding the times. So because this is an ancient old tradition, I thought to look at the religions. So I started looking at what I knew about the Orisha and the Mayan gods and the Greek gods and the Egyptian gods and the Hindu gods, right? And I told ChatGPT to put them all together. I had to correct ChatGPT because ChatGPT don't know a lot, y'all. It makes mistakes over and over again like a 2-year-old, but that's beside the point. I had to really wrestle with it, and I still am. And I have friends who are practitioners of Ifa, so I can consult with them about the corrections I want to make. But and I understand there are different lineages, so I don't know how many there are. I just asked ChatGPT for the deities that are in the calendar, and it says that it's not the same as what they use in their spiritual practices. They don't use their calendar astrologically, is what the ChatGPT told me, and I informed it as I would inform you all and anybody, subscriber or not, to astrology, that I am looking at the symbols of the times and how this culture viewed them. And I'm giving it astrological context in real life. Real life. all right? And I'm not done. You know, it took me about 5 or 6 years to really grasp Western astrology to the point where I can do it with confidence, without confirmation, unless I ask for it. You know what I'm saying? Like I could just flow with it. It took me about 6 years to do that. So I imagine the study of this calendar is going to take me that long too. All right. These are my disclaimers. All right. Because I don't want people to get the wrong impression. I'm not trying to hijack your religion. You know, I am trying to hijack your fractals, though. I ain't trying to hijack your math, okay? Especially if it's useful. What I found is that the Mayans used to worship Tlaloc. He's the storm god of the ocean and great bodies of water, okay? And the rain, all right? Tlaloc is like the Mayan Poseidon, all right? And that in the Yoruba Ifa tradition, you have Olukun. And Olukun is the deity or the divinity of the sea. And I've heard some people from Nigeria say she's the goddess of sea and wealth. And I've heard other people from America say that it's a god. So I don't know if it's male or female. And I don't even want to get into that, but I do want to know which one it should be, right? Because astrologically, from a modern astrological perspective, it corresponds to Neptune and Pisces in the 12th house. And in the essence that it is any vast space, you know, intangible sea, all right, and intangibles, okay, and ancestry is the 12th house in Pisces and Neptune. It deals with our ancestors, okay, so it fits the Igungun aspect concept that comes from the Yoruba. And I missed my point. Tlaloc, Olukun is also the god of the ocean. These two landmasses are very close together. Okay, now they both worship the god of storms or the god of weather and the god of water. He's a very watery god. Okay, and that idea right there was enough to make me look at, so what was similar about how they kept time? Because I'm of the mind that all of the priests of every nation were the timekeepers. They were the calendar makers. So, regardless of whom what kept coming to mind was the idea that Herodotus in book 2 of the histories wrote, and Western astrologers try to discredit this, okay? He wrote that the Egyptians were the first to give the days and the months to deities and to use the character of these to describe the works of a man from his birth even unto the day he died. And I know from my studies that there was commerce in Africa, all over Africa. They knew about each other there. They weren't local. Like a lot of these people that ain't never left their hometown, they ain't never left their county or state. They knew about the whole planet, okay? They knew about distant lands and all that. If there was a global culture that stretched from pole to pole, all the way around the equator, right? So this commerce is evidence of the civilization. So I gotta dig in the calendar and see how common the gods are. Well, I recognize that all of the star lore in any culture that we find it in comes with the development of agriculture and the keeping of the seasons and the time. So I considered that there's a big difference with the Yoruba calendar and the Mayan calendar. The difference is that the Yoruba calendar is 364 days, which means that it's supposed to start a day earlier every year, and 60 days earlier will be, 60 years earlier will be 60 days earlier. Okay, when you look at these things, trying to understand how that little wheel itself needs to go around 365 times to complete one cycle before it comes back to the same day in the same year. But then I heard controversy, and not controversy as in hostility. I heard from another faction or another source talking about the Ifa calendar online that they add a day at the end to bring it to 365 days, and then that calendar is still going to roll a 1,460 year cycle to go all the way around and come back to being. Now that right there is reflective of the Egyptian Sothic cycle, what is called the Sothic cycle. Okay, and that cycle has been disproven. And what do I mean by that? Because people are like, "Oh, wait a minute, you're talking about ancient Egypt now, right?" You dig? What I'm talking about is they say that there was a Sothic calendar based on the heliacal rising of Sopdet, and if you understand the behavior of that star, that it's not a constant. There are times where it cannot be seen, and there were times in the Middle Kingdom where it was, or the Old Kingdom where it was not seen for a minute. So what was they using then? Okay, they were using the solstice point of the sun to make that determination, right? But because the Egyptians gave deities to the days and months and were able to tell the works of a man by the nature of the deities he was born under, that is true for Western astrology, Vedic astrology, Chinese astrology, Mayan astrology. This is true for all of the form Tibetan astrology that I have had occasion, classical astrology that I have had, Arabian astrology that I have had occasion to examine. So I was of the mind that even if there's no present tradition in that culture dealing with the astrologics of that calendar specifically, that I should be able to derive from observation and comparison evidence that would support my thesis that it did, that it does. And it did. And it did. Okay. I put several birthdays in there. I'm gonna post all this stuff up at my Patreon. So if you want to go over there and subscribe to my Patreon, my level 2 Patreon, all right, I'm gonna post all of the research, all of the calculations that I did, because I want to show how it's done. Okay, and I'm gonna continue to do it as long as I'm on that platform from time to time. So I'm over there expecting to see it every single day. Okay, every week, every month, I'm dig into it, and what I find that I can apply astrologically, I'm going to post on my Patreon page for those of you who are interested, and I'll be doing full extensive lectures over there too, like I'm doing here today. Today, I'm trying to give you the rundown without every single morsel of information. If you go over to my Patreon, you'll get that every single morsel of information there without having to join my class. Okay, you just subscribe there and view my work. Okay, and ask questions because there's comments. So I'll be elaborating to some extent. Okay, as long as I don't get ridiculous poking. But if you add a day to that 364 day to make it concur, because the modernization and contact with the West has caused some people to think to that extent to do that. So they've done it. If you do that, then it perfectly matches the Mayan zodiac, the Mayan long count, yearly count, pardon me, the Kitun, okay? Now, what's deep is they call this one a can, okay? And I forget the first word, but the last word is can. And it's a Kitun, or the Tun cycle in Maya, 365 days. Well, the Mayans calculated with, how can I say this? It is 4 seasons of 91 days. Okay? This is why you have the pyramid with the 91 steps up each side of it. And the house on top represents that solstice day. It's the winter solstice where they put the house on top of the hill. Okay? This is what that is emblematic of calendrically. All right? So they're using 4 seasons of 91 days, which is 364 days with a day. Now you find this same format with the day cards. However, they're using 52 weeks and each card equals 7 days, right? But it's still 91 days in a season. Well, you get the same thing with the 364 days. However, they look at their months not as 4 7-day weeks. You got something to do so modernly. But the older or the pristine Yoruba calendar, as I understand it right now, to be pristine, okay, is 7 weeks and 4 days, which is also 91 weeks of 4 days as opposed to 4 seasons of 91 days. Okay? So look at how that works. It works perfectly one with the other. So that's what made me say, well, do their gods match? Does the god of this month in the Mayan season, does the god of harvest match the god of the Yoruba, like Slalak and like Olukun does with the LK sound in both of their names, right? So I didn't get the time yet to sift through everything. And like I said, it's going to take me a few years of this. And y'all going to see the results posted up on Patreon, right? And if you can conceptualize what I'm doing from the demonstration, then you can apply it. So I'm not finished, all right? I got, there's a lot to it. But I looked up somebody I grew up with birthday, and I decided to use the traditional meanings of the Orishas that they use traditionally for the months, the week, the day of the week, and the year in the 60-year cycle. All right. And I looked at January 27th, 1967. Right. So, like I said, I wanted to see the astrological plausibility of their calendar from my understanding. And the person born on January 27th, 1967 was born in the year of Osane. Now, he's a pharmaceutical. He deals with herbology, and medicines and healing like that, but to put it in modern terms, it's like pharmaceuticals. He's got the potion. He's going to give you the cure for whatever your illness is, whatever ails you, right? And therefore, I look at him like a therapist or a doctor, right? Or a person who regularly consults therapists and doctors, all right, would be considered to fall under that umbrella archetypically. So my brother is the first one. He gave me a book on all of these different gods and the astrological correspondences. And I didn't really agree entirely with how the deities were matched archetypally, because people like to play semantics with words and think that because Pisces is dark, that Pisces should also be black, that black is Pisces, but black is not Pisces. Black is Saturn and it's Capricorn in astrology. So, but some may argue, no, well, black is dark, so we can just class it over here with Pisces. And they can do that and not get argument from their clients either. Because who is going to speak differently if I said it was a dark car and the guy had a red hat on, and then a black car passes with a driver with a red hat on, you're gonna think that's the car I was talking about. So, but astrology doesn't work like that. Okay, Neptune does say dark and murky, but what it says is that there's an obstruction to the sight. All right, where Saturn says dark, you can see a person dressed in black in broad daylight. So there's nothing. It has nothing to do with the sight. It has nothing to do with you here. You see? So I wondered if these same distinctions are made between the gods that they use. And I started my investigation, So I immediately got at my man Hank here. Hank, you still there listening, right? And I told him that, I made this discovery, but there's a lot of work that has to go into it, and I wanted to get it out there because the person born on January 27th, 1967. I've known him since the sandbox, and I lost him to drugs. And he also got his foot amputated. Okay? Now, Hossein is one-legged. So, see, I made that connection. Hossein, there's a story about him having one leg, so being crippled. So, this person, born on January 27th, 1967, had his foot amputated. So I thought that, I said, that's too much, that's just too much of a coincidence that the Orisha for that actually described what he went through, all right? Now, this person is also very good with words, okay? Like an orator, and it's not hip-hop type of rhyme, but it's spoken word. He could just spoken word off the top of his head with that flow, And I associated that with Orunmila, because Orunmila is information and wisdom and knowledge, but it deals with the ability to convey your thoughts, you see? So, the fact that he was born the second day of the 6th week in the 11th month means that Ishu is placed over that day, right? Ishu also deals with mental ingenuity and, like the skeptical side of being and looking at things from a dubious point of view and conveying the dubiousness of reality to people for real. You dig what I'm saying? And that's what this person does. So I say, there's not a whole lot. We have the year, we have the month, the week, the day, okay? And from those, we can take those archetypes and actually describe people, all right? And, at least the people that I chose to examine. And that is because I know their histories. I wonder how well. Okay, indeed, Lord. I still gotta be sensitive about this because I got loved ones, and I got loved ones involved in all this. So, but I want everybody to see how there's never been a time where celestial science didn't keep us in tune with our true self. Okay, until the era of modernity and materialism. All right, you got to know that these calendars are reflections of how cultures saw their evolutions unfolding. In any order or hierarchy of divinities is hidden a process from beginning to end. Okay, is what that process represents. And how they illustrate that is encoded in how their culture embedded ceremonies and their deities. How it got to be called worship came about from a misunderstanding of the process. Because in the science, all of these Orisha are agents of Oludumare, of the creator. They're all different manifestations of him. So just like Amen said, Tahuti, Osiris said, Tahuti is my tongue. Herukuti is my sword. You said, this is my arm, this God is my hand. Showing that all of these are different parts of the whole. It's just different ways to break down the whole. So that universality drove me to do some research. Now, when we go back using the system of time that they were using, you're going to have to realize that this year revolves within that year, creating a greater cycle. This greater cycle consists of 5 precessional cycles. That is 5 times 25,920. Okay? So that this points to a larger cycle. It's about 136,680 years, if I remember correctly. And I'm not sure I have it all down pat. It's only been the last couple of days I've been digging into the mathematics of it. I realized that there are thousands and hundreds of Orishas. Okay? Then this is what made me focus on the ones that I can isolate. All right? Because there are many different lineages. And it seems like wherever you go in the world that it is practiced, the divinities take on the form of the environment. What I mean by that is the closer they are to water, they have a lot of water divinities. And the more they are in land, the more earthy and fiery these deities are. Okay? And I compared what was going on in America. And it made me think that if there was universal commerce or global commerce on the earth between Africa and America, 9,000 BC and going back further, then the similarities in the culture are therefore obvious. Okay? But being separated by whatever cataclysm or whatever culture shock that caused the knowledge of one side of the world to disappear, it wasn't really the focus of my research. But you can't help but think about how, even though they were separated for however many hundreds or thousands of years, the tradition was kept. All right. Now, we got evidence to show thousands of years ago that they did have commerce. Okay. From linguistic, from common words and symbols to mathematical systems to architecture to corn, horses and camels. Okay. So there had to be some kind of intercourse because camels in the old world precede Columbus. All right. So when you think about these things, the cocaine, the ayahuasca, all of these things, rubber, which you find all around the globe, okay? Pre-Columbian, being originated in America, okay? And when we talk about the Olmec, they had a system of, they were the first ones with this calendar that we can find. But the calendar is older than the date that they give the Olmec. And there are other people in South America, like the people of Peru, okay, who had cultural and theological similarities with the Egyptians and the Africans and the Hindu. So you find this global school. So the calendar making followed the same rules. They might use 27 nakshatras in India, all right, 13 months in Nigeria, okay, and in Ghana, because I know that's not their own national geographical location that they use. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm pretty sure that nothing stays around. You know, I'm all over the place, right? Nothing stays around for 10,067 years and unchallenged, okay? That isn't useful and that isn't actually resourceful. You know, superstitions become obsolete, religions die, languages die, okay? But specific sciences that remain useful stick around. So like the science of agriculture, we are doing the same thing today on a broader scale or with chemicals, all right? What we were doing as far as irrigation and cross-breeding plants. This is ancient science, okay? We've been doing this for more than 9,000, for more than 11,000 years on this planet, right? So these global commonalities, if I'm being redundant, excuse me, pardon me. Right?
No, bro, you're doing great, man. You're doing great.
These global similarities show, especially in their religious beliefs and in their symbolisms, okay? So I'm of the mind that as what I read, from what I understand, my research, that there are factions who see the similarity. I mean, there's a 60-year cycle, okay, in both places. Well, it's 52 years in the mind count, but it's very close, you see. And I use a 54-year cycle because I'm using the 3 seroses, all right? And I use that template to read charts, you see? So we can, like, for example, we can look at your mother eclipse chart, which is a chart that is 1,200 years old. And we can use that chart as your birth chart. And we can take the time frame of eclipses as they show up every 18 years of your life, that every 18 years is considered to be 1/3 of a cycle. See, and then we throw that's throwing it into the Exelimo's 54-year cycle. Well, when we divide your age by 54 and look at a chart for 1/54th of your age, using that mother eclipse, we can read the moment. Mind you, I'm gonna put some emphasis on this repetition, right? This is a chart from 1,500 to 1,300 years ago, before you were born. All right. So whole cycles create calendars. Whole cycles of this dynamic create calendars. Right. The Egyptian calendar has a 1,460-year swing to it because they didn't institute the 1/4 of a leap year, and Pharaoh took an oath upon taking the throne not to tamper with that calendar so that it would roll 1,460 years and 1,460 years that way. Well, some astronomers, modern astrologers, have sought to debunk that idea that it was the star of Sirius that created that cycle, and they debunked it, and they were very accurate with that, and the Egyptians never said that. That was what some Europeans said, that it was that cycle of 1,460 years was connected to the star and the motions and the perturbances of the star we call Sirius or Sabdet or Supadat. Okay, so there's no 1,460-year cycle associated with that star. All right. So what did the 1,460 years represent? Well, if you know that they understood eclipses, they all use eclipse cycles to create their millennial calendars. If you understand that cycle, you know that an eclipse every Exelemos, every 50 years, means every 54 years, it will happen in the same part of the sky that it happened 54 years ago. And then every 18 years, it trines itself. So if an eclipse happens up here today, 18 years from now, it'll happen at this angle. And then it'll happen at the same angle from it. The third one will occur where it started 10 degrees removed. Okay? Now listen closely. So every time it comes around, that eclipse moves 10 degrees. This, I believe, is the origin of the Egyptian deacons. Because all they say, we don't know what stars they use. But you know what star they use for everything else. You know what the 7 pole stars are. You know what these pole stars are. How is it y'all just can't figure out what those stars are? Because they didn't establish them by stars. The deacons, I believe, came from that eclipse because after a cycle of 36 exelimoses, which is 81 eclipse, you have a full eclipse cycle. And that divides perfectly into 1,460. That's the cycle right there, that eclipse cycle. All right. At any rate, you find that number encoded in the Egyptian calendar. You find it in the Hindu calendar. You find it in the Mayan calendar. And I wanted to see if I could find it in the Yoruba calendar, you know. So basically, when I looked at people's birthdays using the calendar Orisha to determine them, I was astonished. Now, all my life, and especially since my teenage years, people tell me I'm way too aggressive. I'm way too straightforward. I'm way too harsh, you know. And I didn't get that, but I do have Mars in Sagittarius. Okay, so that says that, and people would get that impression from me, even if that's not my intent, right? So, but I like being that way anyway, straight to the point. And I wish people were like that with me more often, you know. And people don't consider that to be nice, but I think being nice is being fake. All right. So I looked at the Orisha for my year. It was Ogun. You know who Ogun is? Ogun is like Mars. Ogun is aggressive, straightforward, path blazer, or trailblazer, forging steel. So he has to forge his way. It is like dealing with circumstances and putting yourself in a position where you or them circumstances need to change. And you need to do it by enforcement. So you have to gain the resolve. This is what Ogun represents too. Anger, fighting, conflict on the negative, self-destructiveness and all that. Okay? So, but at any rate, and my month is ruled by Ishu, which has a parallel to Mercury. All right? Deals with information passage and what have you. And I'm an artist and a writer, okay? And I'm a poet, all right? And a scientist. And he rules pathways to knowledge, I believe, you know, by way of networking through communication, right? And so, and it rules the hands, okay? So, and so the week I was born in is an Ogun week. And I was born on the third day of the fourth week, which makes me Ogun again. Okay, so when I see that, I realize, you know, I had a pretty rough life, and it was pretty violent. I dealt with a lot of violence growing up. You know, I grew up in Washington D.C., and I was in my young adulthood when the epidemic overtook D.C., when the drug epidemic took over D.C. during the Reagan era. I was there in high school. So I saw all that happen, you know, and I saw all the violence around me. So when I tested the person I grew up with and I tested my chart, I was like 2 in a row. So I put my mother's birth time in there, my mother's birth date in there, okay? And my mother worked as a caregiver, okay? And Oshun and Yemaya fit her perfectly, all right? And I'm going to show y'all these charts over on my Patreon. Like I told you, you can get over there, all right? I just wanted to look at the similarities, and this is what I got so far. Know that this is an ongoing work. There's 16 Odu, that the number 16 is not conventional to me in modern astrology, but I understand that ancient astrologers use the number 8 to divide up, and I know that the Babalao do not look at the calendar and select the calendar that it is derived by different means in spirituality. But it's just uncanny to me how these gods are describing the people that I'm delineating them with. And I'm trusting the sources that I'm hearing because, you know, I've not been initiated. So I can't say I've been taught by some Babalao that Obatala is Saturn. I gathered that from the mythology of Saturn. Okay? I gathered that. So I also thought about how the Vedic astrologers divide a person's life up into dashas and bhuktis, and they subdivide these bhuktis, okay, into padas and into antara dasha and things of this nature, to smaller periods of time that are given rulership by a specific god or celestial object, right? And the god is a personification of the celestial object, right? So because of that principle, I was of the mind that there's no difference in the calendar makers all over the world. They're all using celestial motion, celestial science, and we don't have a place on Earth, you know, other than the Caucasus Mountains, where astrological or celestial science wasn't in play since 8000 BC, since the first astronomers left records for us. You got to keep in mind the things they find in history that tie us all together, they dispel and debunk as not real. So a person is less inclined to use it and to prove their point. But you cannot, 10,000 Frenchmen don't tell a lie. You know, 50,000 correspondences, and they correspond on every level. Culturally, they correspond. Etymologically, they correspond glyphically, they correspond with the themes of their mythology. Mythologically, they correspond with the stations and functions of the stations and statuses in government. They correspond with the hierarchy of the priesthood. They correspond with the function of the priesthood. So you know, I'm a diffusionist. I don't believe that everybody all over the earth all at once thought of the fucking bow and arrow at the same time. That they all thought of the canoe. I believe that one people either dispersed it amongst the many, or one people becoming the many carried all that with them. Okay? So with that frame of mind always wide open on whatever I'm looking at, it's never just about the astrology, it's also about the history, because all of the similarities, and the similarities go beyond astrological, when you, just for the sake of being conscious, right? When you read the Mayan Popol Vuh, you see the whole story of Moses right there. Or it's in the Borgian, pardon me. It's in the Borgian Codex, okay? The story of Moses with the staff and the serpent, and all of that. They came from a king, escaping persecution, the crossing a great body of water, a red body of water, all of that. The crucifixion of Kuku Khan looks just like the crucifixion of Christ, man. And why would they not? They talking about the same thing underneath it all, astrotheologically. Okay, the story of the jealous brother, Queen Mu, and the Egyptian Sphinx. If you read that book, and Prince Ko, right? Ko, right? The Prince Ko had a jealous brother, just like the Osiris story. You see the same thing with the same type of rivalry or the same type of competition, even if it ain't hostile, in every brotherhood story, right? I said I was going to touch upon the astrotheology of the Mayan brothers, okay? Because it's older in North America than it is anywhere else that we have artifacts for, all right? The legends of the two brothers and the two wolves and the two buffaloes and there's always two and two and two and two. And we can take that back to Shu and Tefnut, because Shu and Tefnut were the two, all right? But at any rate, to look at this story, I tried to analyze it, because I'm of the mind that it was concocted between 7,000 and 9,000 BC. Actually, pardon me, 7,187 and 5,047 BC, to be precise. So roughly 7,000s to 5,000s BC, just to keep it simple, okay? And in that 2,000, almost 3,000 year span, you know, writing developed, the domestication of animals, and the building homes. And Cancer represents homes. It also represents a very aquatic environment, a very wet environment, okay? And I realized that oral traditions evolve out of wet climates, because the paper, if available, is not very preservable in a place that gets monsoons and it stays wet for months. That paper is not really going to keep its resilience like it is in an environment that's dry and desert, you know? So they would develop an oral system and a sign language system, totem system, a sound acoustic system to encode their cosmologies. And that's exactly what they did in West Africa, okay? And so when I look at the story of the brothers, that is the vernal point being in the sign of Gemini. Well, these brothers had to go through all of these feats, okay? Had to go through all of these challenges to save their father from the underworld so that he can be saved, right? So he could be resurrected, right? And they had to go through these trials and play this ball game, you know, the game of life. The fact that they were holding the ball is symbolic to the fact that the constellation of Gemini had the vernal point of the sun in it, when they concocted this story. Okay, and understand it was there for 2,000 to 2,500, almost 3,000 years. All right, and immediately after the age of Gemini, we see the griot emerge. The griot is memory, which is Gemini, astrologically speaking, and it is reciting, and it is the literary library, and the griot is a living library. Okay, and Gemini deals with words and communication, and they developed the drum, and they talk with the drum. Okay, they had a language, and they're using their hands. See, hands, sound, listening, perception, code, conveyance of information. All of this is Gemini shit. You see, and they use the EBJ, and EBJ is a personification of the sign and archetype of Gemini in the playful, intellectual creativity that Gemini possesses Leo in the third house. Those are the children talking and playing. This is EBJ. Okay, well, you can take the astrological archetype of the sun plus or in the third house, or Leo on the third cusp, and there goes the astrological motif that is equivalent to what I understand so far, what they're saying about EBJ. You see? And I always thought that Oya was Pluto. In my studies, I've learned that Iku is death too. They have different nuances and hybrids in the Orishas that are put on that calendar. And so to resolve the conflict, I chose to ignore the astrological order of things. I don't care that it starts in Gemini too. The calendar starts in Gemini this year. But if you understand that rule, one day every year it goes forward in the Gregorian year, then in 50 years it would move 50 days earlier. It would no longer be in June. It would be happening in April. You see? Right now, in 1965, using that 364-day pivot within that 365-day cycle, puts the new year at April the 4th of 1965. Okay? So you got to understand a little bit of math to use this cycle. And earlier I made reference to the fact that they have 13 months, and they have an Orisha for every month. Now, the reason why I say you can't look at this from a traditionally astrological perspective is because that's not what it is. Okay? Even if it does describe the spiritual journey and the actual event chronology or tendency, personality-wise, psychologically, of a person, okay? That you only have 5 of those symbols there, and you have all of the mythology that is attached to each one. You have to really be thorough in how you're using it, right? And you have concepts in astrology that you don't have in the E5, but the E5 has something just as good. Like I was told today that they don't have elements, all right? There are no elements. So there's no water, fire, earth, air, unless you're making astrological intentionally. You know, there's no Orisha that is strictly fire. You know, when you look at Shango is Aquarius because he's the god of lightning. Aquarius is lightning. And the planet Uranus is electricity in any form, okay? And he is the god of horses and trains and tobacco. Well, horses and trains and tobacco is Sagittarius. He's the god of warriors. That's Aries, okay? He wields a weapon. That's Aries, that he uses to stab, okay, or cut, all right? Hatchet or spear, I don't recall. And it's a cutting instrument. That's Aries. And he's the king. Okay, in his youth, he had to learn the responsibility of leadership and rulership. This is composition. This is Leo. Okay, so from Leo to Sagittarius, okay, and from Leo Sagittarius Aquarius forms a perfect equilateral triangle. And then Aquarius is right at the point, like where my thumb is at. So it forms a perfect kite geometrically, the archetype of Shango. So you're not going to bend a circle into a square and make it happen. You're going to have to look at those orishas for what they mean according to the Ifa tradition that you're studying, and compare those attributes of that God, positive and negative, light and shadow side, right, to the behavior and the tendency of a person, okay? So to see if it authentically and accurately describes them. And it has so far for more than 10 charts on my end. And then that's just what I've done with it in the last few weeks. I need to see other things. Like I want to experiment with its predictability. There's so much that I haven't seen, you know, and I think that's because I was able to go on a constant flow. That's it. Unless y'all got some thought-provoking questions, comments to make.
Man, that's an excellent presentation, bro. I want to thank you for your insight, your contemplation, and the hours you spend doing research.
Yeah, well, I had curiosities as a little kid that only go stronger as I get older.
Yeah,
you know, when I
we
was a
got to
little
keep
boy,
that.
I was fascinated. When I was a little boy, I was fascinated with the idea of Atlantis, and I'm still fascinated with it, you know. And had I realized all that I would have had to go through to, you know, all the books I had to read, all the things I had to examine before I accepted it, because I was skeptical in the beginning too, thinking it was just folklore, following the paradigm that they shove in our face in school. I was of the mind that, you know, that we came over here as slaves and we weren't here before they even got here, you know, all of those things. So as I got older, I was able to come into more resources and come into more knowledge of it. You know, what the shame of it is I really am giving y'all like 1% of what I went through. I can't really begin to elaborate, you know, on all the numbers and the cycles that I found that fit. The fact that they use similar cycles to what astrologers use all from corner to corner. Like in China, they have 60-year cycles. You understand that? They have 60-year cycles in the Egyptian count. They have 60-year cycles in the Mayan count. They still have 60-year cycles in the sky with Jupiter and Saturn. Okay, so and that cycle that they're using reminds me of that. Okay, now so when you think about it, everybody has access to this calendar. You know, it's public knowledge. You see, and the orisha that are attached to it are researchable. You know, so we can develop a system of astrology because, you know, for years people have said to me, "Why are you still using Roman and Greek names for your astrological thesis? When you talk about these signs, you're using Greek and Roman terms." And I know the Etruscans and the Phrygians were the ones who encountered the Greeks and gave this to them, and that's where they get their language from. Okay, Greeks were Phrygians. These were color folk, y'all. These were melanated people, and the Etruscans were melanated people. All right, so their language is melanated too. It's like everything else got hijacked after the Ice Age thawed out. Okay, but really after the Punic Wars. All right, everything was hijacked, and history was put in a twist. The mythology that they're using is historical as much as it could be. Like it seems to me very plausible that when they say the calendar comes from 8042 BC, and then you look at their mythology coming out of the water, man comes out of the water, you know, the gods walked on the waters, drew the land out of the waters and what have you. All of these things in these universal mythologies shows that they're talking about a time right after water was a dominant feature in the environment, whether it was frozen or in liquid form. All right. The sea levels rose globally. We got proof of that by the underground ruins that are 4 and 5 miles off the coast of every motherfucking continent you can look at. Well, be it the Mediterranean, I believe we need to look in the Red Sea. They don't want to do that. They don't want to spend their money on that. You dig? We can look in the Indian Ocean. We got Onoguni in Japan. We got Bimini Road in the Bahamas. And we got what was just recently found outside of Louisiana that is already being said to be 12,000 years old, pushing back the origins of civilization, just like I suspected anyway.
Hey, RaAkhu, you know they have they suppressed it, but family, you can look it up on the internet. They were some scientists doing just sonar, underwater sonar between Cuba and Florida, Key West. Between Key West and Cuba, they found an underground city with pyramids bigger than Giza and sphinxes and cut roads and steps, and it was 2 miles underwater.
Yo, they found another one off the coast of Louisiana in the Gulf of Mexico. And people don't understand why Trump want to call this motherfucker, pardon my language, want to call this joint the Gulf of America. They either want to be able to expose or hide all that. They want America to do it. Okay? It's crazy.
And yo, RaAkhu, you might be up on this book. I heard about it years ago called Hermeneutic Interpretations. And it was written in it was written in 1700s in France and was translated in English in 1910. And the beginning,
give me a brief little overview.
He basically said the word Atlantis means that was the black race that called themselves masters of the universe. Not Earth, not Negro, not African. Atlantean means master. At means master. Lant meant universe. And until the Atlantis sunk.
Means land.
Huh?
And Ta means land.
Wow. Yeah. And so Olmec heads, those are Atlantean heads. That's all I want to say.
Listen, if they come from the people that were in the 1110 and 1600 BC, then they are Olmec heads. If they come from 9000 BC, which precedes the Olmec, man, because they didn't even call themselves Olmec in the first place. All right? They didn't call themselves that. That's the name given to them by the Aztec because they called them the rubber people. Okay? And, Olmec mean rubber. All right? But they didn't call themselves that. Whatever they called themselves, I believe that Atlantis was in the Americas and in the Caribbean all the way out to the Azores. The Atlantis wrapped around this. It was an empire. It wasn't one place. When we talk about what Plato is talking about with Atlantis, I believe he's describing the city of Atlantis. When he says the city of Atlantis sunk overnight, he's talking about what you're talking about, Bimini Road, that area right there in the near the Bermuda Triangle of the coast of Florida. They found the wall that he described right there in the water over here with the nymphs and Poseidon. Yeah, they found that at Bimini Road. So then they found another underground city just recently off the coast of New Orleans. Okay, so Louisiana, Baton Rouge area type of thing. I don't know exactly the geographics, but I know it's right there where New Orleans is. You need to go to New Orleans if you want to take a boat out there to see that shit. Okay, and you want to launch from there. But anyway, so then the Mayans have a mythology about when the Gulf of Mexico wasn't all water.
Wow.
And they have a flood story where the Egyptians said Tahuti, Osiris, on Aser, Heru, Sut, Nebuchadnezzar, and Ra, and I forget the other who else was on that boat. Came over here came to Egypt on a boat, and this is on the Temple of Edfu after their country has experienced a catastrophe, a flood, and they came over a great body of water to get here, right? And somebody recently was telling me that they call America the Amaru or Ama in the ancient book of the dead. I forget the term exactly, but somebody said that. I went and researched it, and it means the place with the land where the sun sets. So they were saying that was a reference to America, not just the Western horizon. And I thought that was an excellent suggestion because the people of Peru were mummifying their dead, evidenced by mummies that are 9,000 years old, older than any mummy you find in Egypt. Yet they mummified them by removing the same organs and treating the body the same way. Okay, so and on the walls in Egypt, you find a glyph for a house, which is a box. It's a square with an opening in it, right? Like a house is built when you're looking at it from the top with no roof, right? Peru, and the name of that hieroglyph is Per. Right? I got this watching this anthropologist on YouTube explain the language, right? He said, then you have two houses, and then you have the glyph for three houses, and the glyph for three houses had two bodies of water under it. Whereas the glyph with two houses and the glyph with one house only had one new symbol, zigzag symbol under it. That the three glyphs together say Peru. And,
wow.
Yeah, and the fact that there were two glyphs for the water means that you had to travel over two great bodies of water to get there. Now, the first great body would be the Mediterranean. What would be the next great body of water before you got to Peru?
Atlantic.
Goddamn Skippy. So there's no question in my mind that these people, that the Carthaginians, that the Carthaginians was coming over here and the Phoenicians was coming over here, evidenced by a massive collection of Father Presti. You understand? So
Yep.
you look at these things and you say, I'm not trying to get into the origin thing. What I'm trying to say is an obvious exchange of commerce here. One more thing, and I know you're familiar with this. The colors red, black, yellow, and white. I know you're familiar with that quad, right?
Yeah, that's Native American shield.
Yeah, exactly. But these are the colors of the directions, according to the Maya, the Egyptians, and the Hindu. All of them use these four colors in tandem, together, for the same direction. Okay.
And so the flag of I also heard, I don't know if you heard, that the flag of Egypt, the white, the red, and the black, that was the flag of Atlantis. I thought that was whoa.
I believe that the Atlanteans use red, white, and blue in some parts. You see, Atlantis is not just one country, though.
No, it's the whole planet.
Yeah, exactly. The whole planet before 900 or up to 900 BC and back. You see, prehistory. Because, man, they didn't hit too much and they're still hiding it. You know? Yeah. If they really, they talk about reparation, they need to drain them cities they drowned. If they overflow and plugged up by redirecting waterworks. You see? They need to go ahead and open up those mounds and give us our possessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. For real. So I was looking at a whole lot of stuff, man. With this here. This is an ongoing work, y'all. You know, it's just starting, you know. Well, I've been aware of the cabinet for some time, and because I couldn't see the geometry in it, I didn't see any use for it. But what I understand is if there's an even number of days in the year, then there's a massive network of polarities going on right there. You see?
Yeah.
There's a massive number of polarities going on right there that allow you to see the harmonies and disharmonies and the balance and the imbalance. And just like astrology has elements, that calendar and the Ifa tradition talks about cool or hot, hard or soft, like that. You see? So that works the same way as the elements work. And the reason why I think it all ties in together is because of the global culture that existed on this planet, and where on earth you find the people undeveloped technologically. Okay, like they still living in the woods, and they still living in shacks, and they still living in the jungle. These places still living out in the grass, like they did hundreds of years ago. That these people have the best record of what to believe regarding what they believe. You understand? In other words, I don't want to go to no Harvard anthropological library to learn what the Maasai think about the sky god. Okay? I want to talk to a Maasai.
Yeah.
Who grew up in that culture. I want to hear what the fuck he got to say. Okay? So, and for the purposes of mathematics, I don't need to consult. And, because I can see the framework right there. You see?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I know at least 3 people of color who went to Harvard. One went cuckoo. The brother lost his rabbit ass mind. The sister, she committed suicide, and the other one is like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I think they do rituals on black folks at them Ivy League schools, man.
Well, I know that once somebody goes through all the trouble of being accepted in that world and going to that Ivy League school, they want to maintain that status. And some people are under pressure of losing the status that they're so used to buckle, break, and kill themselves. I see the reality of it. I don't know if the number of suicide, the stats, I don't know the stats on that.
I bet you it would be appalling, man.
Well, let's not bet. We learned that
from the last
show. Didn't we learn from the last show not to bet?
Well, it's just it's a phrase.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm just okay.
I think they're jacking folks up there, man. To graduate with wigs on. The women are either bald headed or wigs on. Then they lose their mind. I think they're doing some kind of ritual on, black folks, because melanin is carbon. And carbon is also used for filters, absorb toxins. So it's like a double-edged sword to me.
I have no doubt that they have engaged in ceremonies with the intent of manifesting an energy that would do harm to us. I have no doubt. Because they know, Napoleon Bonaparte, in his memoirs, said that he would have made Toussaint Louverture a general in his army if he thought he could contain him. Okay? And then he put him on Elba, or wherever he put him. He put him in exile. I forget the name of the island, okay? So don't chop my head off. I think it was let me finish. So
go.
He said that he would never see the Moor in the position of rulership again in the world. Well, all them niggas is high masons, shriners, devil worshippers, the Baal, Saturn worshippers, and all this rigmarole. Okay, Moloch and all of that other, Moloch and all that other stuff. They keep these legacies alive because their societies have been forever in them since the Punic War, since it went crooked. Okay? So the fact that they doing black magic is evidenced by the libraries at these lodges. You know, you can go into the Masonic libraries and see all their books is on the occult. Okay, most of the religion, orthodox or not, is a compilation of African spirituality and indigenous spirituality from all over the globe.
Man, you know, you make me think of Ross Ben, and he said their shrines was basically their form of spell casting in certain strategic locations like the Jack Up, Philadelphia, New York City, Washington, D.C. It was spell cast in stone.
Well, we dealt with all kinds of spiritual ceremony around the vortexes on this planet. We knew how to find them. We the first ones that discovered them. And all of the major cities on this planet are snapped to the grid, to that grid. And that power center, okay? And most cities are built on deltas or sources of water. You know that's electricity right there, okay? So, and you know, I've been exploring this theory that the pyramids were not built in 10,500 BC. That they were built in 38,000 BC. 39,000.
Facts. 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 Absolutely.
Okay? Yeah, that the Zeb Tepe was 39,000 years ago. And Ramesses restored, not Ramesses, Khufu, pardon me, Khufu restored the Great Pyramid from the previous age of Leo. Not the last age of Leo in 10,500 BC. Because the water erosion on the limestone of the Sphinx is way more.
Yep.
You don't get that kind of erosion in the pyramid. Okay.
Right.
So the Sphinx is way older than the pyramid. The pyramids were built to point to 10,500 BC. The Sphinx is built to point to 25,920 years before 10,500 BC, which is 39,000 some change. Okay.
I believe all the dates that they portray talking about the kings and the queens, they drop 2 zeros, and just to justify Judaism and European Khazar existence, that there was superior intelligence while they were still picking their nose trying to figure out which way is south.
Yeah, it goes way back, man. And you know, I see the argument between the Pan-Africanists and the Maroccanists and Americanists and the Moors and the Christians and the Jews and all of this, man. You know, if you claim an identity and only identify with people by the standard of your own personal identity, you're going to stand alone in the world. And if that's your intent, that's what you're going to do. We need to operate functionally despite our philosophical bent. You dig?
Yeah.
So all the curses in the world, you know, if a people decide to stand up, the whole world can't bring you down. How did the Khazars get to stand up, man, after World War II? And they standing tall right now. It's the government and banking system in the world.
They are tight with each other. Yeah. If anything, Pan-Africans need to study them Khazars because they are biggest gang, but even their Talmud, if you get a chance to read the Talmud tells you how they feel about anybody who's not Jewish. They are a gang, and they are tight. They network.
I think every religion, every group, every cult, everything with a name, with a label, is a separation because of the identity of it and the mercurial aspect of sifting through things and identifying things by their parts, as opposed to the holistic mind frame, which is more Jupiterian, right? To see the bigger picture. You know, can't see the bigger
Yeah.
picture. It won't be until they you know, when you look at the ages, that's a hell of a calendar too, right? We're in the age of Aquarius, definitely. We've been in the age of Aquarius for more than 570 years, okay? For about 570 years, okay? So with that in mind, the biggest genocide in the world occurred between most of the genocides in human history that we have knowledge of that occurred on such a massive scale within a 180-year frame of time between 1813 and 1993. There's more genocide on Earth than there has ever been in human history. Okay, now that ended in 1993, and we entered into the Libra Dwadashama. So we are in Libra for the next 180 years as of 1993. That's 2173 will be out of the Libra Dwadashama. What has happened since we entered the Libra rules government. It also rules democratic form of voting, electoral form of government. Okay? And that has everything to do with Saturn's exaltation in Libra, which I also think is an aspect of Obatala, right? But anyway, going back to that, to being in the age of Libra, you see now that when they take over a country, they install a whole government now. That they make you, if they beat you, they enforce democratic government upon the people, set up elections and all that, and elect the government. And that's what they're doing now. They no longer appoint just a dictator. They install a whole government now before they leave or unoccupy their country, right? Now, that is corresponding with the Libra Dwar. After the Libra Dwar, that's 180 years of that. Okay. After that, we enter the Virgo Dwar. They are getting ready for the Virgo Dwar right now. Okay. They're getting ready. Virgo deals with health. So when Obama was in office, this cat was trying to get the universal health care so that we could get a universal database with everybody's ID in it. And nobody wanted it because of the invasion of privacy that could happen, right? Look at how that would have turned out. Everybody's name in one database, all up in one place, and already collected and already being compiled. They just get access to that database. It's curtains. They got access to everybody in the country, right? And make it mandatory, right? That's what they were trying to do. So it didn't fly. So then they came out with the universal ID. That didn't fly. So then they Patriot Acted us. And in the Patriot Act, they collected all this information on us. They're doing it now with the wireless. They're able to tap it now, look, and you don't even need to know it. They don't even need your permission to look, so that they can gather information. The see-through lenses. So where it's going to go now is they're still trying to push for the healthcare issue with the governor of New York. It's just been given the authority to quarantine anybody on suspicion of infection without any proof whatsoever. Now, that's a trial run for New York State. Pretty soon, they're going to start snatching people and quarantining them. And this is juxtaposed to say for why? You know, like, for what? Because when AI takes over, when AI gets bigger, it's going to take more jobs, which is going to increase the poverty rate, which is going to increase the crime rate. And what are they going to be able to do with the high number of unemployed people? They're going to put them in work camps. Those FEMA camps are still up. They ain't dismantled those. Those things have an intention. Those things are functional and unpopulated and personnel. So when you look at the fact that Virgo, work, and health is next over the next century or so, in the 21st, in the 2100s, the 22nd century, which is our great grandkids and our great great grandkids. Okay, that by then their work programs and those townships, those snap together townships, will be a part of the American way. They look at China, even though this isn't a communist country, even though this is not a communist country, they still look at China's model for how to deal with mass control of the population, okay, with mass control of the masses, all right? And China is the most effective at doing that thus far. So don't think that the strategies that they use to control their populations in China aren't being observed and modified, yet still adopted by the governments seeking to control their populations, including the one we're in right now. Okay. They want to turn America back into a manufacturing company. They want to make all of these companies bring their headquarters and their companies, their factories to our soil to create more generation, but to have more control over the trade. And they're bolstering up corporate law and giving corporation the status they had back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. You know, I'm talked out now, man.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you, I'm still driving. I'm about to hit the Jersey Turnpike. While you was talking, I was just imagining. I don't know where this thought came from. I was like, imagine if RaAkhu had some intelligent reptilians that live inside the earth, give them their calendar and how they started ruling the whole planet from inside the earth. The reptilian calendar or the reptilian diaries.
Well, I need to see the calendar first, and I need archaeological evidence that there are reptilians.
Oh, when I went to Hawaii, I went to the island of Molokai. And
I saw those statues too.
And they told me the kahuna, the priest, the Hawaiian priest, says they live inside their island.
You know, I believe there are caverns all over the earth. I don't know about that, though.
Yeah, I do. Because I saw this firsthand, face to face.
Did you see one of them, though?
No, I didn't see one, but I saw that living Hawaiian kahuna that weighed like 500 pounds. He was born the same year I was. He's an ancestor now.
That's a human being, right?
That's a Hawaiian priest.
Yeah, okay.
Kahuna means keeper of secrets. And the way they went to the island of Molokai to get initiated into the chants that killed armies. Like they have certain chants that will kill you. And then they had chance to bring you back to life.
Why ain't they use that shit when the Americans annexed them?
And according to him, his name was John Kamiikawa, they were hacking, the Hawaiians were killing each other like mad, just like the Japanese were doing on the island of Japan. And their civilization, according to John Kamiikawa, and they were black folks, they literally collapsed their Hawaiian civilization. And a year later, the white folks came. That's what the Hawaiians said.
Hilarious. It is no accident the tide that civilization has taken. Okay. It is in accord with the times, you know. Well, and I left off too, so I just remembered where I left off at. So you know the story about the twins in South America deals with the two Gemini twins have to save their father. Well, where's the father astrologically speaking? And where are all the gods of Xibalba? Because the precession moves backwards, Gemini is not rising. It's going down into the earth in a retrograde motion because the zodiac moves backwards through precession. And the sign of the father in Vedic astrology and in some Western astrologers consider the ninth place, Sagittarius and Jupiter, the one or few of the one or two of those, one or all three of those, pardon me, to represent the place of the father. Well, what's in direct opposition? While Gemini is going down into the earth through its precessional motion, they did this to uplift their father. They're going underground, which is Xibalba, so that their father can be resurrected, so that he may come back up to earth and live again. That is Sagittarius on the descendant rising. So there's no question in my mind that they use celestial symbolism in their spiritual stories and celestial alignments of the earth and the sun and the moon to determine their agricultural rituals. I just want to throw that back out there because I remember I didn't get to finish that. I didn't finish.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Look, man, I've been talking all day and I'm losing my voice. And I appreciate you bringing me on here, but I got to go now, Hank.
All right, listen, family. I want to thank you. We got tomorrow night. We got Tantra belly dances. Special acknowledgement to Tehran and Sister Sunata. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. They're gonna talk women getting back there.
Just in time, huh?
RaAkhu, is always a pleasure, man. You just almost drove me back to Brooklyn.
You just faded out. I couldn't hear you for a second.
Yeah, somebody was calling me. I want to thank you for being on the show. You got a VIP. You're always welcome to come back because you bring mind-boggling, mind-twisting, mind-questioning insights to help folks wake up their question everything, as Dick Gregory say. Question everything because you've been taught lies since you was in a diaper. So thank you, bro.
You're welcome, Lord.
And all the family listening
You're welcome, Lord. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah. Remember, you are an acoustic master. Are you going to create or generate disaster? Peace out, y'all.
Peace.